It's a statement that is saying that gay is not okay because they've just made that evaluation of that particular behavior and attached it to an identity. So there's a variety of ways that it can be communicated. There's also research that talks about what we call stereotype threat. And stereotype threat is the experience that individuals have. The research showed that when an individual has to identify their race prior to going in and taking a test, they will score more poorly on that test, or they will score poorly than they would if they didn't have to identify their race. And the reason is because they go in taking that test with with already internalizing the things that were said about their race, and now they're suddenly internalizing that as they go in to take the test. It's called stereotype threat. The threat of being stereotyped about your race. The threat of being stereotyped about your identity. So there's a lot of power in identity and discrediting and invalidation and treating people as invisible. There's a lot of negative power. There's a lot of power, and it decreases a person's ability to really respond in the most confident way. So when we look at stress, I think about a lot of these things. I can't always pinpoint which one is operating at that time, but I know that we're made up of all these things. Every single one of us in this room has something that we have heard said about something that we identify with that suddenly gives us this feeling in our stomach that, oh, I don't want them to know about that, whatever that might be. When we look at stress, stress is an occurrence that is beyond one's ability to cope. What we all have developed over our lifetime is the ability to cope with different stressful situations, to survive, perseverance. When something bad happens, we draw from previous experiences and know that I'm going to be able to get beyond this, and I'm going to be able to survive this because I have experiences telling me that I can do that. For many of us in our lifetime, we come to a place where we have so many things happening for us all at once that we don't have any more bags, more tricks in our bag in order to be able to move beyond that. We don't have any more of those coping mechanisms or strategies that are positive to move forward. Now, drugs and alcohol are a coping mechanism. It's not the most effective coping mechanism, but it is a coping mechanism. So I'm talking about the ability to cope and using positive coping mechanisms, things that will help our students succeed. So when I talk about stress, I'm talking about a person gets to a place where things are just piling up and they're just too big to cope with. So when we look at the impact of trauma, what we know is that trauma, when it happens, and I want you to think of trauma as being a stressor. I want you to move away from thinking of trauma as being catastrophic, although that does have an impact, of course. But I want you to think of it as being some smaller kinds of things that also may contribute to a student's behavior. And what happens with it, and we can't really measure how trauma impacts one person versus another, because something could happen to me and I'm going to react differently than if